Okay, so review of yesterday. We're not going to review the orphan thing because that was just a small thing. Okay, so the Rambam says, Ba ha'ani, if the ani comes, the sha'al de machzoro in yad hanosin maseges. And so he asks for what he needs, and the giver does not have enough. No sin lo kfi hasagas yado. So he should give to him according to his means. Bakama, how much? Ad chamish nechasav, up to a fifth of his presumably net value. Right, that's what we assumed. Mitzvah minimum, that's the best mitzvah, perfect mitzvah. Not too much, not too little. Any more or any less would be less than perfect, because that's perfect. And then 1/10 of his net worth would be a middle amount, and then less than that would be stingy. You should never give less than a shlishi shekel each year, which we said is 2.8 grams of silver, which is like $1.77.
Oh, grams,
yeah. We weren't sure if that measurement was correct, if we were doing it correct. Anyone who gives less than this has not fulfilled the mitzvah. And even a poor person who's supported by tzedakah is chayav to give it to someone else. So the first question we had, conceptually first, is how does this calculation work? Does it mean that anytime an ani comes to you, you give him a 10th of your possessions, then a 10th of that, then a 10th of that, then a 10th of that? How does that work? Okay, because that's, if you put halacha aleph and halacha hey together, he says de machzoro, and whatever, how are you supposed to do it? Okay, so practical halacha. Okay, so I ordinarily would read the Shulchan Aruch before the Aruch Shulchan, but since the Aruch Shulchan quotes the Shulchan Aruch, we'll just go from the Aruch Shulchan. Is that big enough? Make it bigger. Yeah, okay. So he says like this. We're just going to be 4 halachos. Kasvu hatur v'shulchan aruch. Shir nesina. Oh, sorry. Let me also moderate expectations. Okay. We're going to talk about the halacha of how you calculate it, but not the how of how you calculate it. Okay. In other words, translating what they had into modern terms with investments and portfolio and credit card debt and all this. I doubt I don't know. Okay, that we need some contemporary posting for. So we're gonna see what the halacha is and not translate it into modern terms. Okay, it is written in the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch, shir nesinasa, the amount of giving, im yadam maseges, if you can give, if you have enough, yitin kfi tzorach ha'aniyim, you give according to the needs of the aniyim, she's bar b'simin reishnan. Okay, like it's explained in Rishon next siman. If you don't have enough, yitin ad chomish nechasa mitzvah menuchar v'acham yasar mino beinonis pachas mikan ayin ra'a v'chomish zeh. Okay, so that so far was verbatim Rambam, and this is now quoting the Shulchan Aruch. V'chomish zeh she'amru, this fifth that they said, which is the mitzvah menuchar, shana rishona mehakeren. The first year you give tzedakah, you give it from the keren, which I'm assuming means your total net worth. Or it literally means the principal amount. Okay, what was it? The first year. Yeah, I assume that means the first year that you're giving tzedakah, because otherwise I don't know what it means.
Once you have your own money.
I think so. Yeah.
Also, it's like your first year of you working. Let's say.
Yeah, of you. Yeah, right. The first year of you working, and first year of you having nechasav. Okay, I mean, I don't know what this means in terms of a bar mitzvah boy, nowadays from bar mitzvah, again, that's part of the question. I don't know, right, correct, right. But I just don't know at what point that gets cut off, because a lot of people are dependent on their parents until their 20s, so I just don't know. Yeah. So, and from then on, just the amount that you profit every year, right? The amount that you net gain. Okay. Ad kan lashonim. That is the end of the Shulchan Aruch and the Torah. Okay. V'chein b'maiser hadin kain kumuvan. Same thing in maiser, which we have to remember. Maiser is a type of tithe, right? That's literally what it means, a tithe. Okay. And it's confused. It gets a little confusing because echad me'asara is a 10th of your money for tzedakah, but then ma'aser is its own mitzvah. Okay, of produce. Okay, he'll clarify that later on. Hadin kain kumuvan. That's how it works in maiser. Because of Rabbeinu HaRama, the Rama on this halacha writes, I think we quoted this yesterday. You can't give away more than a fifth of your stuff, or otherwise you'll become dependent on people. Okay, for charity. That's what we said that Takana was. He'll explain this also. That's specifically during your life. But if you're a zombie, but when you're going to die, you can give whatever you want. And that's the end of the Rama. Umashma sham b'gemara da'ad machatzis nechasav yachol l'chalik b'shas misa. So the Gemara there implies that you can divide up to half of your possessions at the time of your death, v'lo yoser, but not more than that. So it doesn't mean you can give whatever you want. Okay, why? Batam pashud. The reason is simple. Shlo yavir harbe nachala me'ayorshin. You shouldn't take away so much inheritance from your inheritors, your people who you're going to bequeath to. I guess if you don't have anyone who you're going to give to, then go for it. Up until half you can give to tzedakah. That's like you're splitting it with your inheritors. That's funny. Half for your soul, half for your inheritors. Nearly. That's what it seems to me. Okay. So far so good. Now he raises a question in a slightly different way than we raise it. I like his formulation. We need to understand the words of the Torah and the Shulchan Aruch. What does he mean when he says, if you have the ability to do so, then you should give based on the needs of the poor? Okay. What does he mean? Since you are obligated to give a fifth or a tenth, and you're not permitted to give more than a fifth, then isn't it automatically going to be the case that if you have enough, then you should give to the Aniyim? What happened there? You should give to the Aniyim. Let's say you're a rich guy, a really rich guy. And a tenth of your wealth or a fifth will take care of the needs of all the poor people. So then you should provide all of their needs. And if that's not enough to provide for all their needs, what should you do? Right? In other words, you can't give more than a fifth. So it seems like a redundant statement. Okay. Here's what he should have said. Every person is obligated to give a fifth or a tenth. And from here, you should provide the needs of the Aniyim. Okay. So here's how he's going to answer, and this is going to answer our questions from yesterday. It seems, according to my humble opinion, this is what it means. The be'emes, in truth, shiurim elu demaiser v'chomesh eno min haTorah. Okay, and we were kind of dancing around this point yesterday, but I didn't actually say it because the Rambam doesn't say it, but the Aruch is saying it. These shiurim of a fifth and a tenth are not from the Torah. They are rabbinic. They have an asmachta, what's an asmachta? Yeah, support, right? Not the actual source, but just like you're leaning the Rabbanan on the words of the Doraisa. We went into that a lot last year, right, what the asmachta is. On Chol Asher Titain Li Aser Asher Nulach, that everything you give to me, I will give a tenth to you. Shnei Isurim, this refers to 2 Isurim, 2 tenths. Okay, we're not going to look at the Gemara there, we don't have time. The Meiser min Torah hu rak betua. From the Torah, Meiser is only from produce, and it doesn't go to the poor. Ela Meiser Rishon LeLevim, the first Meiser goes to the Levim, Meiser Sheni Nechal B'Yushalayim LeBalim. Second Meiser is you have to spend it in Yerushalayim, the owners have to spend it. V'rak achas b'shalosh shanim yesh Meiser ani. Only once every 3 years do you have Meiser for the poor. V'hi gzeres Torah, and that's all from the Torah. V'lo shabat niftu mitzedakah k'muvan. That doesn't exempt you from tzedakah as we understand. So in other words, there's your chiyuvi deoraisa of Meiser, which is only produce, which is only every 3 years. And then your chiyuv of tzedakah, which from the Torah is, he's going to say in a second, de machzoro asher yechsar lo, but midurabanan is a fifth or a tenth. Okay, so that's what he's going to say now. The chiyuv mitzedakah, before Torah, become a psukim. There are many psukim that explicitly state the obligation of tzedakah, and he quotes the psukim that the Rambam said. A measure for that mitzvah is whatever the ani needs. Amnam hadavar muvan. So it's clear that shalot titzave haTorah. Torah is not commanding you to give everything you own to the Aniyim, which would leave you poor. The ways of the Torah are pleasantness. When the Jews were in Israel, and I know Yosef's going to say, well, what exact time period was this? And their situation was good. And the poor people were very few. Then you could fulfill this mitzvah properly. You use your money, you give it to the Aniyim, and everyone's done. Once we were exiled, and there are many more poor people, and many fewer rich people. strong. And even if the rich people gave away all their money, it wouldn't fulfill the needs of all the poor. That's when the Chachamim made the takana of minimal, you should give 10th and maximum 5th. V'lo yoser, not more. Because they needed to make a limit. I don't know if that's a typo. Maybe lepasoach tiftach. V'lomar kol d'tzarech yaisi v'yachol. Anyone who needs come and eat. Mishum denafishe chele demachuza. Okay, kulhu matzina lebar. Everything we have found. I don't know the context here. Everything we have found except for that which mihal liftoch hapesach, for opening the door and saying anyone who needs come and eat. Mishum denafishe chele demachuza, because there are many. There's a lot of wealth in Machshavah. Machshavah was a city. Shaharbi Aniyim Yesham. There are many poor people there, and they consume the principle. I don't know what that Gemara is. All right, let's sum it up at the din now. He brings it back to the Rambam. This is the whole reason we're here. So here's the explanation of the shiur. If you have enough, Klomar, Shehu Ashir Gadol, you're very rich, Va'anim Sham Shema'atim, and the poor people there are few. This is the chiddush now. Yitin kafit tzorach ha'aniyim, give the needs of the poor. Af im ein bezel lo chomesh lo meiser, even if it doesn't take a 10th of your possessions or a 5th. Because that's the ikar mitzvah. So in a world where, again, I'm not addressing modern technology, let's say Jeff Bezos finds himself in a world without globalization and he can only there's only the poor people in his town, let's say. He can easily pay for their needs without going into a 10th of his possessions. So he's yotzei midoraisa. Okay. Aval im ein yada masegas. But if the person doesn't have the means, klomar oshu eno ashir kolkach, either you're not so rich, oshu anim rubim, or there are too many aniyim, yitin ad chomesh o ma'aser, then you give up to a 5th or a 10th, and that's the limit. V'af she'ein b'zeh de machsoro, even though that is not de machsoro, halo efshar yoser, it's impossible to do more. So in other words, you're still yotzei your deoraisa via the shiur that the Rabbanan gave, even though you're not actually fulfilling the needs of the poor. V'nira da'af mi she'eno nosein meiser. So it seems that even someone who doesn't give a 10th, mikol makom mitzvahs hatzedakah kiyan, he has still fulfilled the mitzvah of tzedakah, elash lo kima karoi, but he didn't fulfill it properly. V'zehu kitruma shenosim pachas mechamishim. This is like truma, where a person gives less than a 50th. Shehi mida beinonis, which is a middle measure. I don't know the frame of reference. Ukedavarinu mashma gamba Rambam. Reish perek shvi Matnos Aniyim shekasav, and then he quotes the whole Rambam, and he says that that's what the Rambam means. Okay, so at the end of the day, you have now two things. You have the deoraisa, which is de machsor asher yachsar lo, and the Rabbanan came and they circumscribed it. They set limits. And they also limited the kiyum, or they narrowed the kiyum, which is that if you are very rich, and then you should fulfill all the needs of the poor people, even if that's, and you're yotzei, even if that's less than a 10th or a 5th. And if you are not very rich, or there are too many poor people, then if you give a 10th, then you're yotzei, even though you haven't fulfilled de machsor asher yachsar lo.
So if you're not really rich, you can't really fulfill the deoraisa.
You're not really. So it sounds to me like what he's saying. Hold on, let me just reread one more sentence from before. What are you saying? You're not fulfilling karoi. Yeah, that's near misha eno nosein. So that's if you don't give meiser. Okay. That's if you give less than meiser. So I think he's saying that if you are not very rich and you give meiser, then you are fulfilling the deoraisa, because the Rabbanan shrunk the shiur to 10th and a 5th.
That's what it means for
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Because
the Rabbanan limited. Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's not literally impossible.
You could give more,
right,
but the Rabbanan limited. Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking before the Rabbanan, then you would say that I can't fulfill their needs, but I can give them more than like a 5th of the day. I can just give them however much I can.
Right, and that's what you presumably do. And like if you gave enough to make yourself poor, that's your bad Mishlei thinking,
So that's what I'm saying. So that's what the Rabbanan are coming to fix. Also, they're saying, don't just make yourself poor to give this guy all of your money.
Yeah.
Because you can't be being machsoro.
Exactly. Right. Okay. Yeah. And So nafkamina in terms of how we relate to tzedakah, I think, is once we figure out how to do contemporary calculations of meiser, like again, factoring in taxes and like other stuff. And like, if you were, he gets another shilas about like using your money for mitzvah stuff. Like if you're buying sfarim, like you deduct that, like deductibles, all this other stuff. That's the stuff I don't know. But once you figure that out and you have your meiser that you're giving, I think it's important conceptually to recognize this is not the d'oraisa. This is the Rabbanan modified form of the d'oraisa. Really, midoraisa, we're supposed to give day machzor asher yachzor lo on an ani by ani basis. But because that is people were getting out of control, and because there is this idea of it's not incumbent upon one guy to take care of the needs of all the aniyim, so then they changed it to meiser, and this is how we're like connecting to the Torah's day machzor. It's not tenth is not what the d'oraisa requires. And I think that's just not how most people think of it, because you hear people talk about meiser as if that's the d'oraisa. Yeah.
It's also interesting that like the chiyuv isn't. It's like universalized in the sense that you don't fulfill your mitzvah and then you get like the checkbox, like you don't like fulfill it for the year.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, well now I get done tzedakah. Like the next ani who puts his hand out, you have to do the ox.
So yes and no. Yes, based on what we've seen. No, in terms of he makes an argument that in another actually could we do 5 more minutes? Is that
yeah?
Okay. Just because this one it relates to something at the end of our halacha. He said, oh, this is not him. He says, hold on. I'm getting mixed up in all the prokim that I'm in. Hold on. Look up ani. Oh, that's going to be a bunch of stuff. That's not going to work out. Hold on. Shana. Mishnah. Mishnah. Shana. Is it here? No. Okay, I'll say it now. Wait. Yeah, maybe this is it. Hold on. All right, maybe we'll do this some other time.
Okay.
I got to make sure I'm finding the right one. Yeah.
Because then we get into the whole 1/5 business.
Oh yeah, I'll say
the fifth and then a fifth of that.
Right. The thing I did want to say is that there is an idea of an annual either tabulation or an annual chiyuv to give tzedakah. Like whether or not you've checked off the box does seem to be dependent on whether you've done it once this year. But practically speaking, it is like whenever an ani comes to you. Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. So we said I know Chaim's not here. The other Chaim's not here.